The Blue Jays may never lose again as they push their win streak to 8 straight. Hey everyone, welcome into Long Ball. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Toronto Sun Blue Jays writer Rob Longley. And Rob, the vibes continue to be high with this Toronto Blue Jays team now up to 8 consecutive victories after a 3-game sweep over the Los Angeles Angels over the weekend at Rogers Center. I think at this stage, everybody just looks at this team and is really marveling at what they are able to do. But what has impressed you, especially over this 8-game run?
Yeah, so much, Rob, really. There's been a lot that's been impressive, but I think the versatility, especially in terms of how they are able to win games. You know, they're able to do it in so many ways, it seems. They can do it with the long ball, a bunch of home runs, certainly getting power from all parts of the lineup. They can do it coming from behind. They can do it by building a lead. They can do it by losing a lead and getting it back and hanging on like they did in a couple of those games against the Yankees. And they can do it with some grit and perseverance. I mean, you and I were talking off air, and obviously sweeping the Yankees in 4 games was incredibly impressive and you know, one of the most impressive things we've seen with this team in quite some time. But to me, they showed a heck of a lot in sweeping the Angels right after that, because there had to be some sort of an emotional letdown after winning on Canada Day and taking care of business against the division leaders and moving into the division lead. The bullpen was also sort of used up pretty hard in that Yankees series, yet they found a way to win 3 games against the Angels to make it a 7-0 homestand, the first time in franchise history they've ever done that. Each of those games was a 1-run game. 2 of them were extra innings, and to me that really showed the heart of what this team is all about. And you know, quite frankly, it's become a team that is easily the easiest to embrace since 2015 or 2016, because they're fun to watch. They're out there having fun. They're doing all the little things that's required to win baseball games. They're hustling on the base paths. For the most part, they're playing well defensively. They're scoring a bunch of runs. They're so easy for a fan base to embrace, and I think you're starting to feel that buzz in the Rogers Center. And now that when you factor in a first place team on top of that, it's even more exciting to be a follower of this team. Now, where do they go from here? That's going to be difficult to say. I suspect that there's going to be a lull at some point this season, and there are certainly some flaws in the roster, some that will be addressed at the trade deadline at the end of this month. But they have some currency in the bank right now. When you go through an 8-game winning streak and when you move to the top of the division, they've built a bit of a cushion so that they will be able to weather whatever storm comes. And quite frankly, manager John Schneider has said this on more than one occasion. One of the strongest things, or one of the things he likes about his group, is they don't give a crap. Whether they win or whether they lose, they come to the ballpark the next day, forgetting about what happened the day before and focusing on what has to happen that night. And in a 162-game season, that's a real critical asset and a critical approach to having some success.
Yeah, it really is. As you mentioned, they've banked a lot of wins here. So the fact that they would have to go on a 14-game losing streak just to go back to 500 just goes to show you how far they've pushed themselves up here, where they are now at the top of the American League East. We've talked a ton about George Springer. We've talked a ton about Alejandro Kirk, some of the pitchers on this roster. I mean, up and down, the players on the field have done a phenomenal job to get them to where they are, Rob. But John Schneider feels like maybe he hasn't gotten enough credit considering all the injuries he's had to deal with, all the different faces in the bullpen, position players. He's had to pull so many strings this year, and it feels like he's done a masterful job at it. What can you say about the work that he has done so far this year?
Yeah, funny, isn't it, Rob, that when the manager makes mistakes or perceived mistakes, or the team goes in a losing streak, he's the first guy to take the blame. But when the team has a good deal of success, he seems to be the last guy to get the credit. And I think that is very much an oversight, because not only has John Schneider been pulling the right strings, now sometimes you get a little bit lucky when things work out for you, but he's really getting the best out of all 26 men on that roster, whether it's guys in the bullpen, finding the right time to use them, whether it's throwing Nathan Lucas as a leadoff hitter one day because he feels it's a good matchup, whether it's putting Davis Schneider in the right situations and see him have a little bit of a rejuvenation of his career. It just seems to be that he has a real innate feel now for what to do in a ball game. And, One of the things that's impressed me the most about Schneider is he's very transparent about this. He admits openly that he has gotten better at the job over his course of time in the manager's chair, and the biggest leap forward, in his opinion, came this off season when he became, in his opinion, he became a better communicator. I think that the coaching staff in the front office had some serious conversations with some of the veterans on the team, and sort of worked out a way that things could be better communicated. Of course, the flashpoint for all of this negatively was the time that Jose Barrios was taken out of that playoff game in Minnesota. There was some fallout from that last year, and that was certainly a factor. The lack of trust was a factor in this team being a last-place team. So it was addressed in the offseason, and it was addressed in spring training, and it's carried forth into the regular season. And almost to a man, the players that I talk about that relationship now speak to how the culture in the clubhouse is dramatically different than it was last season and in seasons past. Now, a 10-game losing streak could change that in a hurry, I suppose. But my hunch, anyway, is that the foundation of that relationship and that culture is much stronger now, and it starts with John Schneider. I have a vote for Manager of the Year this year, and I'm not saying I'm giving it to John Schneider right now, because certainly A.J. Hinch will get a bunch of that consideration in the American League. But I don't see, at this point anyway, how John Schneider doesn't get some votes and some consideration, because when you take a team that goes from last place and is in miserable and sort of dire straits for his own career, and then by the All-Star break turn them into potentially a first-place team, that's a great transformation, and a lot of that has to do with managerial acumen.
As you said, there's been a ton of growth with him since he became full-time as the Blue Jays manager, and I think we're seeing the fruits of that labor for sure when it comes to this season. 6 more games left before the All-Star break against the 2 worst teams in the American League. We'll see if the Blue Jays can keep this roll running into the All-Star break. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Rob Longley, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you on the next one.